Hashtag you don't have to be Jewish.
So the other thing we always like to do is take a look back at some of the stories. What were the big stories in South Africa? What were the stories around the world? Well, we wanted to find out about Israel. What were the big stories of 2022? Chaim is a journalist. He's an Israel advocate. We've spoken to him before. Chaim, a very, very good morning. Thanks for joining us again. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Welcome. I heard that this is your last show of the year, and I just had to come. I just had to be.
You had to join me for this conversation. Well, thank you for doing so. So tell me, if we look back at 2022, what were the big stories in Israel over the year?
So there were Israel is a country that there's never a moment where there's no story. I mean, every single day there's at least 20, 30 stories you can talk about. But I think that, apart from elections being called, the whole situation when it comes to politics, I think that is just the noise of what is really going on in the last year. The real big story is the incredible rise in terror that we've been seeing. That is something that it's not something new, but it's something that we haven't seen in quite a while. 2022 broke a record when it comes to the amount of victims we've seen in the last decade. Since 2008, we did not see 31 victims of Israeli victims of Palestinian terror. That is something that we really it's a huge leap in the in the aspect of terror that we've been seeing from Palestinians, and this is coming in in a form in new forms that we've never seen before, and it's mainly because of the situation that's going on in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. There is a huge fight for power between Hamas, Fatah, and Islamic Jihad, and we're seeing that we're seeing how Palestinians are reacting towards it. We're seeing how the organizations are reacting towards it. We're seeing how the PA, the Palestinian Authority, who for many years Israel thought that we just had to try to get rid of it, and now we're understanding that at the end of the day, the Palestinian Authority is probably what's going to try to keep all of these organizations
relative peace.
Exactly, but clearly we're seeing that Mahmoud Abbas is losing grip, he's losing power, and so is his PA. And we're seeing that Hamas has really been pushing ever since. I think when it came to Guardian of the Walls, we saw that that's the moment where Hamas really started to push towards gaining control and power in Judea and Samaria, not just in Hebron, but trying to get into Ramallah, trying to get into the PA assembly, especially when elections were canceled. And so now we're seeing really just the reactions, the snowball reactions.
So would you say? So would you say at the beginning, from the beginning of 2022 until the end of 2022, I don't know how else to put it, the terror landscape has shifted in Israel and amongst itself, and if so, how?
So we're starting to see that Palestinians themselves are becoming just they're losing hope in all of these organizations.
Disenchanted.
Creation of organizations, new organizations such as Lions Den. Lions Den was created in Shem. They have in Shem. They have Jenin. Lions Den is a group of young people who don't necessarily believe in being able to change anything and being able to rule anything. But they are young people who've just gotten fed up of Hamas leaders, of Fatah leaders that have promised them things and never carried anything out. And now they're just deciding that they're just going to go and create terror. That's pretty much what they've decided to do. They were very successful for a period of time. They are probably one of the reasons why we saw an incredible jump in the amount of shooting attacks on Israeli forces within Judea and Samaria. I mean, in this last year alone, 110 instances of shooting attacks on Israeli forces, compared to just 25 in 2021, which is an
Wow,
incredible jump.
huge, huge.
Huge jump, and we're also seeing that the huge rise in lone soldier and sorry in lone wolf attacks. We saw that happen back in May, June of this year. We saw incredible attacks taking place within Israel, with insane amount of just being able to get into Israeli territory.
Well,
Being
we saw
able
that even
to
with the last two bombings, which in fact, it still to me seems like quite a strange story because it was unusual. It wasn't the normal modus operandi, and then it went very, very quiet afterwards. We didn't hear a lot more about it, which said to me that this was something just a little bit unusual, different, and unexplained.
It's as if they're trying to test the waters, see
There's
where
definitely something there.
push forward. I mean, we've been seeing that throughout the last year. I mean, we see how they've been trying to get, legal and illegal workers to be able to carry out attacks within Israel. We've been seeing, just an incredible, growth in Palestinian terror, and it's
So,
the way that it's constructed exactly.
so that's on the terror side. What were there other stories that were not terror related? I would imagine that the World Cup, the Qatar story was a big one for Israel in 2022.
Yes, it was pretty much. It was a big story. I don't know how big it was when it comes to like Israel, much it affected Israelis. I mean, many Israelis as something. They like many Israelis just are big fans of soccer, just and football, just as anyone else. But it is something that has really touched them as well because they feel. You can see the reaction from Israelis watching on TV. How it's clear that there are countries such as Qatar that will never want to make peace, and that the world is just it just solidifies their feeling. I mean, many Israelis don't really react to it the same way as Jews around the world do because. For them, it's just they're already used to it. They already feel like
it's so interesting. So, in other words, it's nothing out of the ordinary. We've never, there's never been a great relationship. It's always been known, especially it's the home of Al Jazeera. It is. No one, I guess, expected anything differently within Israel.
Exactly. The Israelis, I think, it's the same thing when it comes to the stories like Kanye West, where. Aware of what's going on. I think they just for them also they have much bigger
so was the story I am interrupting you, I apologize, but was the story, for example, of Kanye West, was that less of an issue perhaps in Israel than it would have been for Jews around the world? It's hard to measure, but I'm just interested in your thoughts.
Probably so. I mean, you see it also in how much it's being really discussed in in Israelis. Israelis do know what's going on. They are following. They are aware. But it's probably not as discussed as other things. I think Israelis right now they have a lot of huge hot topics on the table. I mean, we are talking about we just had an election. And Israelis are there are Israelis that are concerned. There are Israelis that are happy. There are Israelis that just have mixed feelings. They don't really know what's to expect. Really, everyone right now in Israel is just waiting to see how this coalition government is formed. It's taking a while. People are kind of, people are expecting for it to take place because that's it. I mean, many people, including those who don't really love the results, at the end of the day, Israel has gone through three years of elections, of unstable governments. So for Israelis, I think that while they do look at what's going on with Kanye and with all the huge rise in anti-Semitism, they do look at it with concern. I think that Israelis are just too too busy with other.
Were there
with other
any major social stories or business stories through 2022 that captured the imagination, press, and discussion points in Israel?
I think that this year, when it comes to business, I think that this year Israelis didn't really have much of those stories that they were expected to have, mainly because of economic issues, mainly because of political issues that we've been discussing as well. But we, there were, I'm sure there were more positive stuff because,
Yeah, but those
it's
don't make the headlines in the same way that other conversations do. Very, very interesting. I do need to leave it there. It is 7 o'clock. Absolutely fascinating to look back on a year and just to zoom out a little bit and try and get that perspective. Chaim is a journalist. He's an Israeli advocate talking to us about the stories that captured Israel's imagination and news headlines in 2022. It is 7 o'clock. I'm Howard Feldman. Good morning.